The Vaults. A mysterious presence in the Wasteland, they have offered up everything one could imagine. On one hand, their inhabitants created some of the largest and most thriving communities in the Wasteland. Their technology has changed the lives of thousands, and without them, many great pre-war artifacts would have been atomized in the atomic blasts of the Great War. However, there is a yin to every yang. The Vaults have also been the bane of the Wasteland, sheltering unknown horrors born from the nightmares of their twisted creators. Fungal spores that reanimate infected corpses, schizophrenic mass murderers, and hordes of feral ghouls. Opening a previously undiscovered and unopened vault is like playing a massive game of Russian roulette. You never know if what lies inside will bring prosperity or unleash uncontrollable suffering.
Because of this, many Wastelanders consider these pre-war shelters cursed and avoid them like the plague. However, many of the vaults were well hidden from the public and thus go undiscovered by the residents of an area for decades, sometimes even centuries. Therefore, when stumbled upon by a lost Wastelander or persistent scavenger, they can be opened and their secrets unleashed upon the land.
And while this is the way that many stories of vaults have seen the light of day, the greatest resource we have on these massive fallout shelters is the Vault-Tec Database our order is hacked into. Within this, we've been able to decode and decipher many of the encrypted databases that were stored within, and with those came the specifications of each and every vault that was ever created. Here, Scribe Matty and I have recorded some of the more twisted ones, both truly horrifying for their treatment of people inside, as well as morbidly interesting, making you wonder why on Earth people would ever subject their fellow man to such atrocities.
The first of these vaults is Vault 108, located in the capital Wasteland. Vault-Tec saw fit to provide the vault with extensive cloning facilities. Now, data on why exactly they did this and what the end goal of the experiment was had to be corrupted, so we may never know what the idea behind this experiment exactly was. But at some point, the scientists within the vault began cloning other residents inside the vault. But each batch of clones became more and more violent towards non-clones. What occurred after that is unknown. 200 years after the Great War, the only living occupants of the shelter were clones of a man named Gary.
That, of course, isn't the only vault located in the capital Wasteland. Being a major center of society, the DC area had several vaults dispersed throughout the area. Vault 106, for example, had psychoactive drugs released into the ventilation system, giving everyone inside violent hallucinations and driving them all insane. Or Vault 92, where, in a similar fashion, the residents were driven to madness and murder by subconscious combat suggestions being directly implanted into their minds, in an attempt to test the effectiveness of hypnotic suggestion on soldiers. Vault 76 existed somewhere around the DC area, and was one of the only control vaults on the East Coast. However, it has yet to be located, and the fate of its 500 occupants are unknown. There was also Vault 87, where FEV testing created a second generation of super mutants that rose up and converted all of the other dwellers into mutants to swell their ranks. Vault 112, where a simulation program trapped all the residents inside its mainframe, and Vault 101, designed not to be open for 200 years.
Vault 101 was actually the home of the Lone Wanderer, vilified by some and loved by others. The story of the Lone Wanderer is a mirror to another story, as 100 years ago, the now legendary Vault Dweller stepped out of Vault 13. It was also designed to remain closed for 200 years, to then be used as a, quote, pure, end quote, control group for experiments by the Enclave upon their planned reclamation of the Wasteland. However, a water chip forced the vault to open, and the Lone Wanderer stepped forth, leaving his or her, the legends are never very clear on the gender, wake in a trail of both destruction and change, dramatically influencing the fates of many.
A vast majority of the vaults inside the database we managed to tap into existed in the heavily populated West Coast. Vault 11 was designed to test the willingness of people to put the better of their fellow dwellers before themselves. They were informed that each year a human sacrifice must be made, otherwise the vault would be destroyed. The inhabitants of the vault were supposed to refuse the sacrifice, after which the AI running the facility would congratulate them and allow them to leave the vault if they pleased. However, this did not go according to plan, and instead of resisting the computer system as planned, massive power blocks formed in the vault, and eventually riding between them killed all but 5 of the vault dwellers, 4 of which committed suicide after the reality of the sacrificial system was revealed to them.
Or Vault 22. The residents of this vault were given massive arboretums and absolutely zero food dispensers. Tasked at growing their own food, the scientists within the ranks of the Vault Dwellers began experimenting with different plant species, crossbreeding and genetically engineering more fertile and efficient strains of crops. Unfortunately, this unleashed a cloud of spores that infected everyone inside, killing them and then reanimating their corpses as spore-covered monstrosities. Vault 34 suffered a similar fate after a civil war within the Vault caused half of their numbers to be ejected. Their nuclear reactor began to suffer a meltdown. Unbeknownst to them, however, the vault door was designed to lock itself for an unknown amount of time after being opened, and the residents inside slowly succumbed to the radiation and mutating into hordes of hideous feral ghouls.
Other Vegas vaults actually survived to serve their original purpose. Vault 3, one of the original 13 control vaults that had no experiments planned around them, existed peacefully until a water chip failure forced them to open up to the outside world. Now, here they met a vicious, drugged-up gang that massacred the entire population and took over, but for the sake of its control vault, it did stay pure and nothing happened to them. Or Vault 19, segregated into two groups, the Reds and the Blues. Before the conflict could escalate into an uncontrollable measures, sulfur leaks from the caves below forced both factions out of the vault, leaving it abandoned, yet everyone surviving.
And then there's Vault 21, by far one of the most successful test vaults. It was filled entirely with compulsive gamblers, then denied any type of pre-assigned leadership. Instead, it was fully stocked with a casino worth of gambling appliances. The only rule, everything must be solved through gambling, be it the position of overseer, any disputes, major exchanges, all would be settled through a game of skill and luck. This worked better than anyone could have expected, as anyone could raise their lot in life simply by luck, or just lose it as quickly. However, Vault 21 met its end when Robert House discovered it, and after a high-stakes game of blackjack, the vault fell into his hands. He quickly stripped it of all its electronics and filled it with mostly concrete, only leaving a few upper levels intact for a small hotel to take its place. There are also vaults that have created cities of their own. Vault 8, another control vault, was given a GEC, and upon its opening it was utilized, creating the thriving Vault City. On the other end of the spectrum, Vault 12's door was designed not to shut fully. This doused the residents with radiation, mutating them into some of the first ghouls, and the city of Necropolis was established by those same ghouls. Vault 15 was filled with people of all different cultures and beliefs, and while the only info we have of it comes from old NCR records, we do know that the Vipers, Great Khans, and the Jackals, three major raider factions in the West, originated in that same vault. However, from Vault 15 also emerged those who would form the settlement of Shady Sands, and after some help from the aforementioned Vault Dweller, would form the new California Republic. Here ends the list of vaults that we have solid information on. The remainder that Scribe Slenny and I will cover exist within databanks that are too corrupted to glean more than a few tidbits of information from, and have yet to be discovered in the Wasteland. This may be a good thing though, as the information we've found so far indicates that for the most part the experiments that took place inside were horrible, and if any survivors remain, there's no doubt that they would be in no shape to face the outside world.
Don't believe us? Just look at Vault 77. Large enough to house hundreds of people, instead only one man entered the vault before it was closed behind him. The Vault-Tec records show that the only thing inside the vault besides him was a crate of puppets. What happened to the man inside the vault may never be known, but stories whispered around slaver campfires speak of a man wearing a Vault 77 jumpsuit, with a puppet in one hand and a knife in the other.
Like the man from Vault 77, the mental states of potential survivors would be at high question. Besides the agoraphobia, fear of open spaces, that tends to develop in people born within a vault, the stresses put upon them by tests run on them would damage them mentally. Vaults like Vault 53, where things were designed to break down constantly, putting great stress on dwellers, or Vault 43, where the only residents were 20 men, 10 women, and for some inexplicable reason, a panther. Many of the tests were designed to deny the inhabitants of this sort of basic need. Vault 36's only sustenance was a thin, watery gruel. Vault 42, where all the light bulbs were under 40 watts, and Vault 27, where 2,000 people were admitted, which is twice the sustainable amount.
There was also Vault 68, where 1,000 men were interred and only one woman with them. Vault 69 was the opposite, where 1,000 women were there and just one man, and as fun as those odds may sound to you, they were hardly sustainable. For Vault 68, the presence of just one woman meant that the population could never keep up, and for Vault 69, though a new generation could be birthed, the subsequent one would suffer from genetic defects from the mandatory incest, and inbreeding would destroy the vault within a few generations. Vault 70 was a modesty experiment. having jumpsuits deteriorate quickly and the jumpsuit extruders shut down after just half a year. To add to the modesty issues, the vault was filled entirely with Mormons. However, this seems to have not deterred them in the slightest, and they left the vault to found New Canaan, the eventual birthplace of Caesar.
Vault 17, raided by the Master to bolster the forces of his super mutant army, and Vault 0, the Control Vault. Its computer systems were designed to monitor and manage all 112 vaults from the safety of the Cheyenne Mountain. Additionally, the greatest minds of America were cryogenically frozen inside and were supposed to re-emerge from stasis after the war to create a better America with the data gained from the Vault experiments. However, it was revealed to our organization that, quote, creating a better tomorrow, end quote, meant overrunning the wasteland with robots bent on cleansing our post-war life. Thus, we sent several strike teams to the Vault and eliminated the threat once and for all.
Looking back at it all, the vaults were actually miracles of engineering, designed to survive a nuclear blast even at point-blank range with minimal damage to people and technology inside. They kept thousands of people safe from the nuclear fire that rained down that fateful October morning in 2077. If not for the sadistic experiments by the Enclave, the secret backers of Vault-Tec, the vaults may have led to the rapid rebuilding of humanity, as one by one their doors would open and release strong, hard-working people into the wasteland, armed with the greatest technology of pre-war America. Still, even with the evils that occurred in so many of them, a small few have still contributed greatly to the wasteland, and there are a great number we have yet to discover.
Most recently, rumors have begun circulating of the opening of Vault 111 in Boston, which was thought to be sealed for eternity. That may just be a rumor, but regardless, it's a great reminder to us that we should never assume that all the vaults have fallen silent for the last time, as at any point in time a new one may open, and we never know if it'll unleash salvation or hellfire.